The AI economy has changed what's possible for small and medium businesses. Access to tools, knowledge and expertise has never been greater, but access is no longer the advantage. The real difference now is in your capability, your human, leadership, business and digital capabilities, and that's what this podcast is all about. This is Make Time for business owners who want to lead rather than be led. For many of us, we didn't learn business at school, and whilst I learned to code using BBC Basic, I definitely didn't learn about AI when I was young. So in order for us to know what to do, we have to engage in some form of learning. Now, if you've read the books, taken the courses, attended the workshops, or watched the interviews, subscribed to the newsletters and filled notebooks with insights you fully intended to apply, and your business is still largely the same, I want to make something really clear. This is not a reflection of your intelligence, your work ethic, or your commitment. I believe it's a structural problem with learning and capability building, you applying your learning successfully again and again. The information age has sold you the idea that knowing is the same as being able, and it's not. And no amount of additional input will close that gap on its own. What changes things for people is not more information, it's the right conditions for learning to transfer in your situation. And for the people we serve, that means whether they and their business thrives. Welcome to this week's episode of Make Time, specifically for those who are ready to stop gathering knowledge and start building genuine capability to lead a thriving business. And this isn't because you're lacking anything, far from it. It's because you may not yet have had access to an environment where what you learn actually sticks. I'm your host, Sam, and I'm passionate about helping you and your business thrive. There is a kind of frustration that comes with being a capable, motivated business owner who keeps investing in their own development and not seeing the results change. You buy a course or attend a workshop because it addresses a real problem, or it addresses what you perceive to be a gap. What happens in the first instance is that you engage with the content, you take notes, you leave with genuine intention to implement. Then Monday comes, people need decisions, clients need attention, the day fills, and 3 weeks later you realise you've not applied a single thing. Or the gap you thought you had wasn't quite solved by the workshop itself, didn't tell you anything other than what you needed to do, rather than what this means for your specific situation and how you apply it. When this happens, most people draw one of two conclusions. Either the program was not that useful, or they didn't have enough discipline to follow it through. But I'd like you to consider another way of looking at it. There's a concept researchers called the knowing-doing gap. I've talked about this before. The gap between what you know and what you actually do. And when we think about this in a business context, the research shows that the gap is not primarily about the quality of the knowledge you acquired, and it's not primarily about your character or your follow-through. It's about the conditions, specifically whether the environment where you were learning is connected enough to the environment where you need to apply it. Jeff Beer, Magnus Finstrom, and Derek Schrader published research, Harvard Business Review in 2016 on this specifically. They found that when people learn in isolation from the context where they need to apply it, transfer fails almost universally. The knowledge is there, but the application doesn't follow. What this means is that learning in one environment and being expected to apply it in a completely separate one is structurally set up to produce exactly the result many of us may have experienced: a good workshop or a course that did not change how the business runs. So if the conditions are the answer, which conditions specifically? There's a body of learning research that I find really useful here because it gives you a structural framework rather than just a motivational framework. The foundational idea is that adults don't learn through a linear sequence. They learn through a cycle: experience, reflection, conceptualization, and application. All 4 stages have to be present before learning consolidates into genuine capability. And the problem is that most professional development gives you, at best, 2 of those stages. You might get the concept, you might get some reflection in the room, but then you go back to your business and the experience and application stages just don't happen in a structured way. You don't get the feedback loops and the cycle stays incomplete, so the capability doesn't form. This is why you can read an entire book on delegation and still not know how to have the actual delegation conversation with your specific team member in your specific business at this specific moment. The book gave you the concept, but what you needed were the conditions to complete the cycle. The second research piece I think is useful here is Benjamin Bloom's 1984 study, what became known as the 2 Sigma problem. Bloom found that students who received one-to-one tutoring outperformed students in conventional group instruction by 2 standard deviations. 2 standard deviations is roughly the difference between an average result and the 98th percentile. And the mechanism was not the tutor being more engaging or more expert, it was the feedback frequency. Tutored students received immediate specific correction after each attempt. They didn't wait weeks for feedback, they were refined in real time. The practical implication is quite significant. The speed and specificity of feedback is one of the most powerful predictions of how fast capability actually builds. A well-designed program that gives you no real feedback loop will produce a very different result from an environment where someone is paying close attention to what you're actually trying and giving you targeted input on it. The responsiveness of the correction matters more than the quality of the original instruction. So what are the specific conditions that actually make learning transfer? Beer, Finstrin and Schrader went further than diagnosing the problem. They identified 4 conditions that reliably produce transfer. The first is context alignment. Learning needs to happen close to the work it's meant to improve. When the gap between where I learned this and where I need to apply it is too wide, the transfer fails. This is really the structural problem with a lot of off-site development. You go somewhere else to learn and then you come back to the same pressures, the same team, the same constraints, and nothing in your operating environment has shifted to support the new behavior. The second is structured application. You need a clear structure for actually trying what you're learning in your real business context, with enough scaffolding to prevent a single difficult attempt from becoming the evidence that it just doesn't work in your situation. The third is targeted feedback, not general encouragement or high-level observation, specific, timely, actionable input and what you actually tried and what happened. Bloom's research puts this as one of the single most powerful variables in learning outcomes. The fourth is social accountability. Learning that happens alongside others who are working on similar challenges produces significantly stronger transfer than learning done in isolation, not because of peer pressure in any kind of crude sense, but it's that accountability creates conditions for honest reflection. It's harder to sort of quietly let something slide when someone you respect will ask you about it next week. And the thing about those 4 conditions is that most professional development products provide, at best, 1 or 2 of them. And what the research shows is that removing any one of them significantly reduces the chances of transfer. Removing 2 or more, and the odds shift substantially against you. If you've been building a business for a few years and you've tried more than one approach to building your own capability, you've probably lived at least one of these 3 situations. You may have bought a course that you self-paced through. You bought it because it spoke to something real. You worked through the first few modules. Then a business or personal crisis arrived and it got displaced. The content was probably good. The conditions for applying it were not there. You may have attended a conference or a workshop and you left energized, a notebook full of ideas, a handful of contacts, real momentum. And then about 10 days after you got home, the energy was sort of gone. Normal operations resumed, no structure to follow through with, nobody to help you apply the insight to your actual situation on day 7. You might have engaged a consultant who looked at your business carefully, produced a well-considered report, and gave you recommendations that were technically correct, but it didn't account for how your team actually operates or the reality that you were the one who had to implement the recommendations whilst also running everything else. And it certainly didn't help you build your capabilities. You might have engaged a business coach who got to know you and your business over time. They helped you by supporting you to test ideas and provide feedback. But the knowledge and skills came through trial and error or suggestion, and they didn't translate into the ability to do them again and again, only in the short term. And that service is definitely designed so that you need their support ongoing rather than building self-reliance. A caveat here, though, is that a really good coach can help you accelerate your progress if you have the capabilities underneath. But none of these approaches failed because you didn't try. They failed because they did not provide all 4 conditions: the context, alignment, structured application, targeted feedback, and that social accountability. Remove those from a learning experience and the odds of meaningful transfer shift against you. And that's worth noting here, without any judgment on any of the programs or the people who ran them for you or yourself. It's just simply what the learning evidence shows. 25X research gave us specific data points on this too. Business owners who worked in a structured, supported learning environment with regular application tests, peer accountability, and targeted coaching feedback showed measurable shifts in traditional business metrics within 8 to 12 weeks. When the 4 conditions are present, you don't need years to see meaningful change. And that's certainly what we saw there and what we've tested over the last 10 to 11 years. The capability builds because the conditions support it building. It shows up in how decisions get made, how responsibilities get handed off, how the business runs when you're not directly involved in every moving part. If you've been in business long enough to have a team and a client base, you'll likely know your business well. The challenge is not that you lack knowledge. The challenge is that the business still reflects your level of direct involvement more than it reflects your level of knowledge. You know more than the business currently shows. That gap between what you know and what the business actually does is the conditions gap. And this is where I think the current environment makes it more important, because the capability era rewards capability that compounds, built through application, feedback, and structured support. We have the world's knowledge at our fingertips. Information isn't the problem. Business owners who build operational capability will find themselves increasingly differentiated. Those who continue to accumulate information without the conditions to turn it into change behavior will find that gap widening. So the question is not whether you need to build capability, it's whether you're currently in an environment where that is actually possible. If anything I've said in this episode has felt familiar, I'd like to encourage you to understand where you are now before you consider any other development, the next workshop or course, to get a really clear picture of where you actually are. I developed 25X Small Business Capability Gap Diagnostic Tool because I wanted everyone to have access to information that would help them make better decisions about where they spend their time without having to do a full 25-8 program. The diagnostic really is a snapshot of the tools we use to help business owners get laser focused on exactly what they need to do to help them achieve their goals at the start of our programs. Our programs then help them build the capability to do that. Where our programs take 8 to 12 weeks, the complementary diagnostic takes 8 minutes. And This isn't a lead generating tool for 25/8 necessarily. We're not going to spam you with thousands of emails, but we do recommend the right 25/8 program on the results page. There's no commitment attached. It's just a diagnostic. The point really here is to give you a clearer view, because clarity about what is actually limiting you is more useful than any enthusiasm for a program that you're not sure is the right fit yet. If you are already past that point and you know you want structured, supported learning environments with all 4 conditions built in, then we can definitely help with that. The Next Level Growth Program is ideal for small, growing businesses who want to stabilize their sales or build systems that will support them to scale. Or our Industry Growth Program serves established businesses looking to expand or transition into new markets. If AI capability is important to you, then we have Lead with AI in beginner or intermediate and advanced tracks. With all of our programs, though, the aim is not to give you more information, it's to build those conditions to turn what you already know and what you can know into how your business actually runs. The link to the Small Business Capability Gap Diagnostic is in the show notes. You are the most important resource in your business. And as Warren Buffett says, I believe the best investment you can ever make is an investment in yourself. Building your capabilities is one of the best investments you'll ever make. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode. And I'd love for you to send any questions or topics you'd like us to cover by popping them in the comments below. Hopefully see you on next week's episode. Thanks for joining me on this week's episode of Make Time. Every week this season, we're going deeper on what genuine capability development looks like for small business leaders in the AI economy. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. To help other small business leaders, we'd love for you to leave a review or share this episode with them. And if you haven't done so already and want to know specifically where your capability gaps are, the 25/8 Small Business Capability Gap is our complimentary diagnostic tool. The link is in the show notes. It'll help you decide exactly where to focus so you can work smarter, not harder. And see you on next week's episode of Make Time.